We'll go ahead and dive in. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the LCTCS Board of Supervisors Executive Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that the meeting is being live streamed. With that, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to call the June 26, 2024 LCTCS Board of Supervisors Executive Committee meeting to order. At this time, I would like to appoint Supervisor Salat as an executive committee member for purposes of today's meeting. And then we need to say the pledge of allegiance. Supervisor Salat, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If Ms. Poole, if you will, has there been any requests for public comment?
No, ma'am, not at this time. And I would be happy to call for you
Please do.
at this time. Okay, Chair Mount
Present.
is present. Supervisor Price
Here.
is present, and Supervisor Salat
Right.
is present. Madam Chairwoman, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Again, this is a reminder that public comments must be related to a specific agenda item. So next on our agenda is the chair would entertain a motion to approve the June 26, 2024 meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a first by Supervisor Price and a second by Supervisor Salat.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. I'd also like to request a motion to approve the September 1st, 2022 meeting minutes.
Move.
Motion by Supervisor Salat,
Second.
second by
Is there any
Supervisor.
objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. So the staff recommends that the committee approve the consent agenda, which consists of items G.1.
Keep going, that's correct.
Okay,
Can I get a motion? Motion by Supervisor Price, seconded by Salat.
is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Next, we'll have the academic action item consideration by the committee.
Yes, so this is an item that we annually deal with, which is the Perkins MOU between the Department of Education, the Louisiana Department of Education and the LCTCS. As you know, we are the administrator for that grant. A significant part of that total, about half, goes to K-12. And so this is the memo every year that governs that relationship. And so it is on the agenda for approval for this year, and that would be for the 24-25 academic year. So as such, staff recommends that the board approve the Perkins 5 memorandum of understanding between the LCTCS Board of Supervisors and the Louisiana Department of Education for administration of the secondary portion of the Strengthening Careers and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act for Perkins 5 funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 24 and ending June 30th, 25.
Move.
Can I get a motion? Okay. Motion by Supervisor Salat, seconded by Supervisor Price.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, next, we have the facilities action item for consideration by the committee.
Sure. So this item is a 9x9 project, just as a quick reminder. Joe has given this primer a number of times. 9x9 projects are those that are self-financed by colleges, but yet still has a process that we need to follow. So Joe, you can give us.
Right, so, and the reason we're bringing it to the committee is that process involves us going to the Board of Regents. Once action is taken here by you, it goes to the Board of Regents for their formal action, and ultimately to the Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget, JLCB. And as you can imagine, that's a lengthy process. JLCB always meets in August every year, and we're hoping to get on that agenda. So that, and to do that, we got to get it approved by the Board of Regents beforehand. So we're bringing it to you for action. In this case, these are two projects at Sewell. One of them is a flight training school project, which is going to be funded through the City of Lake Charles. It's a bond referendum of $2 million and an Economic Development Administration federal grant in the amount of $3.5 million. The other one is a Maritime Training Center project funded by CBDG Disaster Recovery Funds grant through the City of Lake Charles in the amount of $5 million. So in total, we're talking about $10.5 million for two projects. One a flight training school, the other one is a maritime training facility for Swell. So congratulations to the chancellor for his work well done and the investment made there at the college. As such, staff recommends that the board authorize the assistant president and chancellor of Sewell Technical Community College to complete all requirements and execute all documents necessary to use the Act 959 process to construct a flight training school at the Lake Charles campus and a maritime training center on a parcel of land located along the Calcasieu River in Lake Charles, which has been pledged for use by the college at the Port of Lake Charles. Approvals from the Board of Regents, Facility Planning and Control, and the Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget are required for this process.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Price, seconded by Supervisor Salat.
Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes.
And Chair, if I may, I just have to give a shout out to Mayor Hunter, just for the incredible work going on there. This is a community that is investing in its own people. Exciting to see and just excited about the leadership from both the mayor as well as the chancellor.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very proud of both of them and for Southwest Louisiana, because we continue to do what we do best, and that's combine our efforts, work together, and we're real proud of these two accomplishments for sure. All right, item number 3, implementation of House Bill 940 of the 2024 legislative session.
I'll take that one and give a little bit of context and then ask Joe, if you will, to give you the recommendation. You are aware that during this past legislative session, because the bill was signed last Thursday, I believe it was, Joe. We had already noticed the meeting as HB 940 and not the act number. And so you will recall that HB 940 was the deferred maintenance bill that was carried by Representative Turner. There are roughly $50 million in that fund for LCTCS institutions. We have the flexibility of running this effort through a facilities corporation, or the flexibility of working directly with FP&C, or the flexibility, third option, is to work with a third-party provider that does project management, but do it in conjunction with FP&C. That third option is the direction we would like to take. So it allows us to still have the partnerships that we have with our third-party project manager, but it allows us to put dollars directly into the project and to move quickly.
That's great.
That's what's necessary, because about August of this year, when JLCB looks at this list and sees us begin to spend money, they're going to want to know by about April of next year, how did you do?
Yeah,
And how much money do we need to put the second time? We want to make sure that we're able to move quickly. That's what this process will allow.
Recommendation?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, sir. Staff recommends the board authorize the president to negotiate and execute all documents necessary to fulfill the requirements to implement the provisions of HB 940 of the 2024 legislative session, and to approve the attached initial list of projects to be completed with funds appropriated by the legislature, and authorize the president to make any changes within the list as necessary.
Motion by Supervisor Salat, seconded by Supervisor Price.
any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Now I'd like to move to suspend the rules allowing for the finance item H.4 to be considered for action instead of review and advisement. Are there any objections? Hearing none, finance item H.4 will be considered for action.
Yes, ma'am, Chair. Chair Mount, one of the items we have before you, the item we have before you is a policy revision that does require board action related to an item within the policy. The policy itself deals with student accounts receivables, and it's primarily a financial policy. However, as part of the policy in there, it requires that colleges must withhold transcripts from students who owe outstanding balances. And that has been the case for many years now. Unfortunately, or I don't want to say unfortunately, but it's just a matter of what it is. The federal government has issued regulations that any student that receives Title IV federal financial aid, Pell being one of them, that colleges and universities throughout the nation cannot withhold that transcript from those students, or at least for that semester. So you may have a student that comes in, pays with Pell, comes later on and does not pay with Pell. You cannot at least withhold the transcript for that portion paid for with Pell dollars. We find ourselves, as many of our universities throughout the nation and here in the state of Louisiana, that we basically need to take the most proactive course available and just to strip that out completely from the policy. That doesn't mean that students are not going to be forgiven their debt. Their debt is referred to the state treasury, to the AG's office, or the Office of Debt Recovery, the Department of Revenue, and those practices and policies that we have in place still remain in force. And so The only thing that is changing in this sense is the policies that we're stripping out the section of the policy that deals with the withholding of a transcript and remaining silent on that issue. And that's basically it in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Now I can read the recommendation. Staff recommends the board approve the attachment revisions to LCTCS policy 5.008 accounts receivable policy.
I move.
Motion by Supervisor Price, seconded by Supervisor Salat.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item 5, tuition and mandatory fees for academic year 2024 to 2025.
Yes, ma'am. This is an item we bring before the board at every meeting at this time of year, and when there's questions about not only among us but among all the higher ed, really what is the intent of the management board dealing with tuition and fees, or is anybody going to be raising them or not? As you may recall, historically, up until about 10 years ago, our tuition and fees were roughly 20% below the SREB. And one could argue, was that appropriate or not? Keep in mind that Louisiana, as compared to other states in the South, is that even though the South is a poor section of the nation, Louisiana is a poorer state as compared to its peers. So once you factor that in, that 20% being below the SRB average could be deemed appropriate. However, with the passage of GRAD Act and the steps that occurred afterwards, there were year after year subsequent increases in tuition and fees, such that the LCTCS increased tuition and fees by 107% as compared to the SRB, which increased theirs by roughly 47%. So when you look at over time, we are now roughly at 12% above the SRB average, whereas in the past we were below. As time passed and we had subsequent 10% increases year after year after year, we superseded the SRB. We've held the line since 2015, 2016. We have not increased our tuition and fee schedules since then. So the SRB has continued to climb, but even so, we're still roughly 12% above the SRB, and we feel that it's not appropriate to increase, at least in terms of a base tuition and fee schedule, not to increase those rates to our students. However, we must be cognizant that given inflationary factors and other factors, it may not be out of the question to look at our tuition and fee structures as related to our high cost programs where we have high consumables and materials fees, small class sizes, whether that's allied health, commercial truck driving, things of that nature. And so we're going to request that while we hold the line, we're going to want to do some type of analysis to present the findings back to the board for consideration, whether it's no action at all or to take some action. With that said, I'll read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board not increase credit hour tuition and mandatory fees at LCTCS colleges for the academic year 2024-2025. Staff further recommends, in the event of HB 862, the regular session of the Louisiana legislature is passed, that the board directs staff to study all aspects of tuition and mandatory fees and to provide the board with recommendations at a subsequent meeting.
Motion?
Motion by Supervisor Salat, seconded by Supervisor Price.
Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passed. I'd now like to call on Supervisor Paul Price to present the governance action.
Ma'am, this will be the nominations for the 24-26 LCTCS board officers. Per revised statute 42, the governor now has the authority to appoint the chair of the LCTCS board. In the past, the first vice chair and second vice chair roles have been filled with a pair of members in the coming years to fulfill the chair role. In light of the changed statute, we recommend that the first and second vice chair roles be filled with former chairs in order to support the role of the chair. Therefore, the governance committee has met and provides the following recommendations for first vice chair and second vice chair for approval by the board. The recommendation, I'll read it. It is the governance committee's recommendation that the board appoint Stephen Smith as first vice chair and Stephen Toops as second vice chair effective July 1, 2024, for a 2-year term of office ending June 30th, 2026.
Motion by Supervisor Salat, seconded by Chairman. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Is there any additional business to come before the committee?
Can't help, but didn't want to delay the meeting with the president's report, but I certainly can't help myself but to share some of the numbers as we
I
get close to
think
the
you
end of the
should,
year.
I think
So-
you're gonna hear some good numbers.
So as you will all recall, we have worked now for the past 4 years on the game plan of Prosperity 2030. Each year focused on a target number of graduates and ensuring that those graduates have earnings that allow them to support themselves in Louisiana's economy. If you remember, we set out a goal of 335,000 graduates across a period of time. We have seen that number impacted dramatically by COVID. But what I want you to know is, as of today, as of June 30 of 2024, we targeted this year 30,154 graduates. 11 of the 12 colleges exceeded their targets. 11
Awesome.
of the 12 colleges exceeded their targets, for a total today of 33,821 graduates. That is about 100 graduates short of the record for 2020, which was the COVID year.
Yeah.
So I think in the next 2 weeks, we'll probably exceed that number. It is an incredible feat that is going on. I need you to understand that no one is educated in this board office. It happens at the colleges. When you see chancellors, when you see faculty, when you see students, congratulate them. This has been an incredible effort. Just a couple of just details about the numbers. In addition to 11 of the 12 getting it right, 21,000 graduates on the academic side. We've seen increases on the workforce side, but to see increases on the academic side at that level is incredible. Remember, just a few short years ago, 2012, we were historically hitting 12,000 graduates a year. And so now what's happened is that increase across time. Yes, we took on huge decreases from the general administration. Yes, we doubled tuition, as you heard from Jim. But what you're seeing is these colleges have tripled the number of people graduating. Just couldn't help myself but share that message.
And how about one question,
Sure.
and that is, how do we compare to the rest of the country?
Well, the rest of the country is still chasing us on this one, I can tell you. There's no question, the rest of the country is not hitting the academic mark, and the rest of the country is not hitting the workforce mark. There are some systems out there that are doing a really nice job on the workforce side, some doing a nice job in academics. What you're seeing in your community and technical college system is a lift that's coming from both sides. That's what's really special about this. And from the student's point of view, sometimes they don't even know whether it's credit or non-credit. It doesn't matter. It's the skills that matter and the
Right.
job that matters. So just can't tell you how much I appreciate the support from this board, allowing us to be able to do this work.
Well, we want to congratulate you and your, what I call your 12 superstars.
You were right.
Yeah. And their team,
The best
because it
America.
takes a team at each of you.
Can I comment on that? That's wonderful news, but my question is that showing up really in the state, which we briefly talked about 10 minutes ago?
Mhm.
And there's an enormous amount of unemployed people in the state,
Right.
and yet we have these successes, and just hoping it would start to show up.
So give a little bit of perspective to the numbers. So Louisiana has just over 2 million jobs. So if you just think about what that looks like at 2 million, we have about 2.3 million people that are in what we think of as the prime working age. And so when you put those two side by side, what you recognize is we have several 100,000 people who are not employed, some of which are not looking for employment. What we believe is that if our labor force participation rate, which right now is about 8th to 10th from the bottom of the country, there are 41.5% of our people that are not working, looking for work, or going on unemployment. So that 41.5, if we simply were at the national average, we would put another 146,000 families to work, another 146,000 families that are no longer dependent upon the federal government for healthcare benefits and other benefits. It is a game changer for us. So net, that 146,000 would net Louisiana about $7 billion worth of people.
What's the
If
national
we
average,
simply got ourselves to the national average,
which is what?
60, so what is that, 58.5, so it's 62.3. So to answer your question in general terms, there's a long path ahead of us to get to where we need to be able to show that kind of impact. But the other thing that is important is education is no longer a one-shot deal. Most of us around this table went and got a baccalaureate degree, and that was the experience, right? Most of the students that we're talking about are coming to us and getting a CNA license and coming back in a year or so and getting the OPM license, coming back in a year or two and getting their RN license. That's that process of climbing that takes them from 15 to 1750 to $25 an hour. That is game changing. It's a heavy lift, it's hard work, but what I know I can tell you is we're better today than we were this time last year. And we continue to make huge strides.
Great news. Is there any other additional
Can't top
good
that.
news? Ms. Poole, has there been any requests for public comment related to one of the enumerated agenda items on today's meeting agenda?
Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment.
Right. This is just a reminder that public comment must be related to a specific agenda item. I'll just remind the committee that the next regular meeting of the board is August 14th, 2024, and it will of course take place in person at our regular meeting location at BRCC. Is there any other announcements to be made?
One thing, the October meeting is planned at this point for Lake Charles. We're looking forward to that.
Yay!
So, look forward to having the group in Southwest Louisiana.
Excellent. I'm very pleased to hear that. I didn't know.
It'll save you a trip.
All right.
Went across the bridge.
Yeah.
Did you have to mention bridge?
It was down to one lane for a while, so in any case, I request a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Supervisor Price, seconded by Supervisor Serrano.
Any objection? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you all so much for coming. Very good. Great.